Hey folks, Kostya here. I'm back with round 3 from the 2025 Reykjavik Open. In this round, I was paired against Thomas Allard, rated 2053 from France. And yeah, this was a double round today, so this is the second game of the day. Earlier today, I played against Grandmaster Lu Shanglei from China. I did a recap earlier of this game that you can check out. I lost that game, so going into this round, I was at 1 out of 2. But still in pretty good spirits. I mean, losing to 2600 Grandmaster never feels too bad. You know, we had a nice little post-mortem after the game, learned some stuff. So yeah, was just looking forward to getting another good game in. So my opponent starts with e4, which was expected. There wasn't a lot of time to prep for the round. Basically, like, essentially, actually, I only had like 10-15 minutes because the pairings came out like 40-45 minutes before the game. And then I had to like walk to the tournament hall and set up like the camera for the stream and everything. So I actually only got like maybe 10 minutes max of actually looking at my opponent's games and repertoire. And I saw that he was an open Sicilian player, but not a ton of experience. Like, he didn't have a bunch of games in the database. And it seemed like he maybe even had like a little break. I saw there was games from like many years ago and then not many games recently. So although I did check his tournament history as well and saw that he'd been playing a lot recently, but those games, of course, weren't in the database. So I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but I didn't want to play Najdorf again because I played it in the first round of the tournament, and you know, I figured he would look at that game. I wasn't sure, but you know, the Najdorf then wouldn't really be a surprise at that point, or maybe it would have been. But I also thought, you know, Najdorf is very common. It's a very popular opening, so if there is, you know, something that my opponent might be prepared for, Najdorf is a pretty safe bet. You know, lots of people play Najdorf. Even if he didn't prepare for me specifically, he's probably looked at it, you know, in the recent past. So for this game, I decided to go back to kind of my main line these days, knight c6, and now d4 was played. Takes, and e5. So the Kalashnikov Sicilian. I've also played the Sveshnikov a bunch, probably more so than this one, with e7, e5. But I've played this a handful of times in the last couple of years. I think I picked it up maybe like towards the end of 2023 or so. Knight b5, d6, and knight c3, a6, knight a3, bishop e6. So this opening is a little bit different to the Sveshnikov because black is delaying knight f6 and not allowing white this simple idea of playing bishop g5 and pinning the knight. Actually, my inspiration for this game is Hikaru Nakamura, who used this opening to defeat Lenier Dominguez in a very important game in the American Cup. I forget which year, not the recent American Cup, but a couple of years ago. And then I remember Naka also used the line, and he almost beat Arjun Erigaisi in the FIDE Grand Swiss a few years back as well. So clearly a very interesting line, especially if black is trying to play for the win. Okay, so here white played knight c4, which I believe is the main move, just getting the knight back into the game before black plays b5, and I went rook b8. So rook b8, this is the Naka line, and this move has become quite trendy in this position. And yeah, it's a very funny, like, you know, computer move, obviously. But the idea is that black is preparing to meet the move bishop b3 with b5, so that white cannot go knight b6 in this position. And there's still some sharp theory, like after knight d2, because white can try to get a quick a4 in, and black's queen side is loose. But that's kind of the idea behind the line. And otherwise, it's not actually so obvious how white should develop here, because the knight would really like to go to e3 and then d5, but it doesn't want to get in the way of the bishop. White would rather just like trade this bishop off for something and then establish control over d5. So knight e3 is playable here, but then black happily goes knight f6, and I think it's a pretty reasonable position. Okay, so here my opponent played a4, and he had already started like tanking here and spending quite a bit of time. So I definitely felt pretty comfortable already. And after a4, I started thinking a bit because I thought it was kind of an interesting moment. I believe the main line here is to play knight f6, which allows white to play bishop to g5. And then black has this really interesting idea, knight b4, which is actually one of my favorite ideas in the Kalashnikov, because it looks so weird. Like you're breaking, like, I feel like so many rules. You're moving the same piece twice in the opening. You're not like creating like a tactical threat. The idea is a positional one to control the d5 square. And I guess eventually, well, actually quite soon, black does want to go d5 themselves. And if black is able to achieve d5 in this kind of position, then black is doing quite all right. But yeah, I really like that the knight on b4 is just kind of floating in mid-air, but it can't really be bothered, right? It's like very hard for white to play c3. It's like, where is this knight, supposed to go to? And, a5, rook a4 is super slow, but also when black goes d5, the cool thing is the bishop on f8 opens up and defends the knight on b4. So by the time white's rook gets to a4, black can just play d5 and is very, very comfortable. I actually had a game previously in the Rilton Cup in Sweden 2024 last year with a similar idea, where I also got this knight b4 and won a nice game. But after knight f6, bishop g5, knight b4, of course, important to point out that there are ideas with like bishop takes f6, and yeah, so like black does have to be pretty careful here, because if I just go bishop e7 randomly, white can take on f6, and then the d6 pawn will be hanging, which in many lines black can sacrifice, but you have to know kind of precisely what you're doing there. So I started thinking for a bit, and I decided to just play knight b4 immediately, which I also at the time of the game believed like was a playable move. And then I checked my notes afterwards and confirmed indeed that knight b4 was okay here. And yeah, the idea is just not to make it simple for white. Just play knight b4 immediately. White doesn't have the obvious pinning move bishop to g5, and now has to make another developing move. So I think the critical move for white is to go knight d5 themselves before black has a chance to play d5. And I didn't quite remember this during the game, but yeah, probably black can take and move the bishop somewhere like bishop f5 or bishop d7. I'm not totally sure. But this structure should be pretty playable. It's like a Najdorf structure where we've fixed the d5 square, but now white has like the queen side. We've got the central pawn majority. Nowadays, you can get these structures from Najdorf, Sveshnikov, lots of different openings, like King's Indian sometimes maybe. Yeah, that was critical. But my opponent ended up going bishop e3, which I was certainly happy to see, because now I can play knight f6, and I'm no longer worried about bishop g5, because here white's just giving up a full tempo to play this move, which may be a reasonable move anyway. We'll see, like white has issues developing here, but yeah, black certainly is super happy to get the free move. Instead, white played bishop e2, and yeah, again, I was kind of like happy to see this move. Like, it wasn't 100% clear like what's happening in this opening, but slowly I felt like black is taking control. My first idea here was actually to just go d5 right away, with a cute little trick in mind. If knight takes e5, I can go d4, and then bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, and black is winning a piece. Queen d4, knight takes c2 check, and we'll take on d4. And yeah, unfortunately for white, they don't have anything. But yeah, after d5, of course, it's not so simple. White should take on d5, and then I'll recapture with one of my knights, maybe this one. And yeah, the e-pawn is often not really a problem, because if knight takes e5, I'll take on e3, for example. Let's say f takes e3, and I was thinking about a position like this and thought that black should just be, absolutely crushing here, just because like the dark squares are so vulnerable for white, like queen g5, bishop c5 is in the air, and things like that. And I'm sure there's other moves, even like I would feel the end game is preferable for black, but of course, given the choice, I would keep the queens on here. And so after knight d5, let's say white trades once, we'll go knight takes d5 here, maybe like bishop d2 or something. The bishop doesn't really have such a great square. I think here black is doing well. I would probably, I would definitely take black's position, maybe a slight edge like queen c7, and then yeah, just continue developing. And yeah, we have a nice center, our pieces are active, and white's pieces not so great. But then I noticed this move queen c7 is actually very annoying, just like hitting the knight on c4. And now it's not so obvious where this knight should go, because if knight to b6, I just have a very simple trick with knight takes e4. And then after knight takes e4, knight takes c2 check, king f1, knight takes e3, check. And I pick up the knight on b6, and yeah, black is up 2 pawns and just completely winning. So knight b6 is not possible, which would be wanted to get the knight to d5. And instead white played knight d2, which I think makes sense. Like what else is white really supposed to do here? You definitely don't want to go knight a3. And then b3, I didn't really calculate what's happening on b5 because there's some tactical ideas like takes, knight takes b5. Otherwise, black would be winning a piece, so b5, of course, is a very natural move. But yeah, knight takes b5, rook b5, knight d6, check. And during the game, I didn't even want to look at this because I felt like it was unnecessary, given that here I don't have to play b5. I can think about it, or I can also just play like d5. Like, there's no way d5 is not just, also good with the queen on c7 and pawn on b3 included, which just weakens white's position. So I knew that like d5 here should be totally fine as well, so I wouldn't have to calculate b5. But now, just out of curiosity, I do want to look at it for a second with my own eyes. And yeah, so bishop takes d6, bishop takes b5, check, and then there's going to be like rook a7 or rook a8. So that's definitely a problem. Like king a7, rook a7 does not look good. If knight takes c2, white can just take because of the pin. So queen takes d6. Well, actually, hold on. Bishop takes d6. Bishop takes b5, check. We can also go bishop d7 or knight d7. But then, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to figure this out. But like, white has rook a8 check. Rook takes h8. But okay, black also has threats. And knight takes c2. Bishop takes b5. Okay, this is a funny position. Rook a8 check. Rook takes h8. I'll go bishop takes b5. I can take on c2, but let's just say I go bishop takes b5. And I have 3 minor pieces for 2 rooks, and white can't castle. I mean, probably, yeah, this looks pretty nice for black, actually. This is a threat, possibly taking on c2, e4 is hanging. Yeah, looks great for black. So otherwise, if rook a8 check here, we can just drop back rook b8. So yeah, I feel like takes, bishop d7, and it's looking really good. If bishop takes d7, king takes d7, we have 2 pieces for the rook. Let's say white castles. Oh wait, sorry, I'm blundering rook a7 again. So let's go knight takes d7, and let's say white castles. What do we have here? Honestly, not a very clear position because white has a rook and 2 pawns for 2 knights in the middle game. So very unbalanced. And I'm not even sure who I would take. My instinct though says black, actually. Like, just looking at it for this 1 second, just I don't know. Middle game, usually you take the 2 pieces, even if white's a pawn up. But that being very complicated, I probably would have just gone for d5 because I don't really see any huge drawbacks here, and then maybe b5 is coming as well. I guess we would have to see what would have happened in the game. Knight d2 was played, and now d5 I think is very clean, threatening d4. So white's obliged to take. I took back, and now if knight takes d5. I could recapture, but of course I had knight takes c2 check in mind, king f1, and now not knight takes e3 because knight recaptures, but just bishop takes d5. And the critical thing here is that I'm not worried about any pins because knight takes e3 is coming with check. So we get out of the attack next move. We're up a pawn. White's king can't castle 2 bishops. It's like, yeah, we have all the advantages in the world. And otherwise, the bishop is attacked and the rook is hanging too. So this, I thought, is just good for black. So white just castled, which, yeah, I was kind of expecting because it's like, what else is white really supposed to do? If knight c4, I take on c3 and then take on c4. And black is winning a pawn because white has to win, take back their piece on b4. And then we take here with check. And we're doing quite well. We can castle very soon. So, yeah, I thought maybe white should... no, sorry, not takes, but go knight e4. But then I would take on e3 most likely, go bishop e7, castle, f5 somewhere, and this e3 pawn is just huge target, queen b6 coming, and so on. So to me, black felt like it, should have huge advantage here. So knight takes d5, white castled. And here I could just take twice on c3. That was certainly my first thought, and I didn't really see what white has here that's so dangerous. But ultimately, I just felt like what I did was actually just maybe a little bit more simpler to play for black. Even though I did think black is doing well here. Though I was looking at knight e4, for instance, and then I thought, I am a little bit underdeveloped. My king is still on e8. My pieces are great, but yeah, I need to connect my rooks. And this is all just for one pawn. I think the line that convinced me was queen takes c2, knight d6 check. And I didn't look at this one too carefully, but once I saw like bishop takes d6, queen takes d6, I was like, nah, I don't want this. Okay, I can defend the knight and the rook with knight c6, but there's like bishop c5. Okay, I don't know bishop on e2 is hanging, so bishop c5 doesn't seem to come with a threat. So from afar, I was like, oh, there's bishop c5. Maybe white starts with bishop d1 or bishop d3. I'm not really sure. Bishop f3. This is not really, what I wanted. I wanted to kind of keep the initiative. So instead, I decided to take on e3. Pawn takes e3 and just go bishop c5, just like very simple. I took the dark squared bishop, and now I'm going to use my unopposed bishop and hammer white on the dark squares. And I wasn't really sure what white should do here because, I think like intuitively I would just want to give the pawn with king h1, but let's say black takes, or can even start with rook d8 just to be incredibly annoying, and then queen c1, take on e3 there. Or take on e3 right away, I think is totally fine. And then rook d8 is a massive problem. And okay, black is now just, pawn up in the center. So white went rook f3, defending the pawn, which makes sense. But yeah, again, I was like kind of happy to see it because I just thought like white's pieces are so passive here that I don't need the extra pawn to win the game, right? I'm just I'm just gonna use my pieces and dominate. So rook d8, just pinning the knight. Queen c1, unpinning, a kind of only way to keep c2 defended. And yeah, at this point, I felt like black could just play normally. Like originally my idea was to castle, and let's say knight e4, drop back bishop a7, and then just prepare like f5 and e4 with, just huge play in the center. I was also thinking about playing f5 in this position, actually. I think actually this was really what I wanted. Just stopping knight e4, preparing to play e4 myself, and then castling soon. And yeah, it just looked like really nice position for black. But then I just noticed like tactically that I have a nice idea here, just very forcing. So I didn't really sniff anything out. This was more just me looking at forcing moves and finding them, right? So I played bishop g4, attacking the rook. White's only move seems to be rook to g3 because what else? E3 is hanging. Rook takes f7 isn't really so good. So rook g3 played. Trade on e2. Knight takes e2. And here, I just kept looking at like forcing moves. I looked at bishop takes e3 check, followed by like knight c2, which is nothing. And then I saw, oh, knight c2 first. And so, of course, if queen takes, bishop takes e3, wins the queen, and game over. But I was trying to be actually very careful here because I realized with knight c2, I am, I'm taking a bit of risk. Like, everything has to work tactically. I am lining up a lot of pieces on the c file. But yeah, positionally, it felt like I got to be doing well here. The rook on g3, both of white's knights are kind of passive. Everything is passive. So yeah, logical that the tactics are working for black. I was thinking maybe white would go knight e4 here. Now, what am I threatening? I'm threatening to take the rook, and at some point I'm threatening knight takes e3 as well. So knight e4, I was thinking I would take knight takes e5, b6, and this looked like game over because I'm up the exchange, and yeah, my heavy pieces are going to come in very soon. But instead, my opponent played, I think, much stronger move b4, which was definitely very resourceful. Although, I don't know, of course, desperate times call for desperate measures. Probably I should have just taken this pawn. I think this was simpler given how the game progressed. Just like hitting the knight, I can go rook c8 if I need to back up the knight on c2, and black is now, yeah, just 2 pawns up for very little, no compensation. I can castle and, yeah, should win handily. I really don't know why I didn't go for this move. I mean, I kind of know why I took the rook. I just took the exchange, which I felt should be good as well. But looking back at it now, probably bishop takes b4 was simpler. Again, just given how the game went. So knight takes a1, pawn takes c5. I castled. And, of course, if queen takes knight, the knight on d2 is hanging. White goes knight e4, which, yeah, I definitely expected. And I figured I should, be able to kind of clean up here. Because, even if I lose my knight on a1, which is unlikely, but possible, and I don't get anything back, I mean, I should be able to get some pawns or get my heavy pieces in, and white is still, very much discoordinated. However, it's still tricky. Okay, for example, knight b3 here, white can go queen c2. And if I move my knight again, then there's knight f6 check, and oops, game over. White mates on h7. So, of course, I realized I needed to be careful here, and I started with the move queen c6, which I thought was smart, attacking the knight. And if knight d6, I think I was just going to take on d6. I mean, there's other moves as well, but I remember thinking that this should be pretty straightforward. Just going for this endgame, rook d8, picking up the d6 pawn. White has no way of defending it. And then we're 2 very healthy pawns up. White's pieces are still bad. My knight can just get back in. White's not covering, all the escape squares. And, yeah, so this was my plan. I was, very comfortable to try and convert this endgame. But instead came queen to b1. Very crafty move. Not taking the knight, leaving the knight on a1, and of course setting up ideas like knight to g5 and knight f6 and so on. So of course queen takes a4 is another oopsie, knight f6 check. And I was thinking about knight b3, because if queen takes e4, but then knight g5, right? And white has a double attack. I have to defend with g6 or something, and then white can take the knight on b3, and yeah, I lose a piece. So I was still trying to keep this knight on a1, and I played the move f5. Mostly expecting knight g5, and then I wanted h6, and I thought, yeah, now finally my king is getting safe here. I'm going to take on a4 soon. If queen a2 check, there's queen d5, and yeah, black should be winning. But instead, knight d6 came. And suddenly I realized things are not so easy, because if I take on c5, white can go queen a2 check. And it's okay, I have to go king h8, knight f7 check. I have to take. Queen takes f7. And, yeah, I don't know what's going on in this position. I mean, okay, I can defend the mate with queen f8. But let's say white goes queen takes b7. I'm 1 pawn up. a6 is hanging. All of a sudden, white has all the activity. And my knight on a1, all my pieces are basically bad. So maybe this is still, decent for black. I am up a pawn, but completely, not what I wanted, given the opening and everything. So, yeah, I started thinking how to deal with this. Another move I consider was f4, which I thought was interesting, because if takes, I take on c5 with check. But white is rook h3, hitting h7. And if I go h6, the queen comes into g6. That's not fun. And if I go g6, white's got... I felt like white has some annoying checks here with queen a2. I don't know how annoying this is. There's going to be king to g7. But, yeah, I did feel like this is not getting so clear. Though I don't remember exactly what bothered me about this one, to be honest. Long story short, I ended up playing rook d7. After, yeah, decent think, I think 8-9 minutes. It just felt okay, this move covers b7, covers f7. And here I started to feel actually pretty good. If knight takes f5, for example, then I feel like white doesn't really have a next move, kind of everything defended. So I think knight b3. No, this is hanging with check, excuse me. So yeah, maybe I start with king h8 and then look to play like knight b3 or queen takes a4, queen takes c5, and my pieces are, yeah, coming alive and my king is safe and so on. Maybe I could do something else as well. I'm not totally sure here. The other thing white could have done was queen a2 check and queen e6, where I believe my intention was to go knight b3. Not b6, which loses to knight f7 check, and the queen hangs. But I think I want a knight b3 here. The intention of taking on c5, and yeah, thankfully for me, again, everything is covered. It looks scary, but white doesn't actually have a really dangerous move here. If queen takes e5, I think I can just take on c5 and, yeah, start trading stuff off. So I felt like I had that one covered. White played queen takes a1. I take on c5, and now white does get to save the piece. Queen a2 check, king h8, knight c4. But okay, we have rook for 2 knights, and we have 2 pawns. But our rooks are extremely active here, and white's rook on g3 is actually just like totally out of the game because it's not really participating in the action if white doesn't have any tricks on the king side. So I actually thought this should be, anyways, very good for black, although I wasn't so happy with my technique. But yeah, I played b5, takes, knight d2, and now f4. And yeah, finally black is breaking through. Main line I was calculating here is that if rook f3, I was going to take on e3. And the problem for white is like the knight can't move because of rook d1 check and mate. And otherwise, I'm threatening to take with check. And then if rook takes f8, queen takes f8, then the knight is hanging 2 different ways, and queen f2, queen takes e2 is hanging. So yeah, basically white is busted here. The knight still can't move because of mate, and so next I'm just going to play ed2 and make a new queen. So at this point, I felt like it's basically over. If knight e4, then rook d1 check, king f2, and not taking the rook with double check. It's like, when else can you take a rook with double check and it's bad? But rather taking the pawn with double check and mate, of course, much stronger. So yeah, knight can move. Instead, rook h3 was played. And yeah, now I just took on e3. I did actually have to see, okay, one very small detail. After rook f3 takes, I did check that white didn't have any like crazy like queen c2 moves or anything like that to, deflect the queen away from the rook on f8. That could be a real cold shower. Your opponent goes queen c2 and all of a sudden you don't have a move. But okay, of course I can just move my queen here, but easier is to take on d2 with check. White takes the queen, and then I promote with check, and then I keep my extra exchange. Can take this one with check, and then I just have to make sure I don't get back ranked here with queen f8. Maybe just like rook d8 or queen d6 is the simplest. After white takes the rook, and yeah, should be winning from there. But instead, rook h3 happened. I took on e3 anyway. My opponent at this point, actually, I should note, has no time. So yeah, very hard to defend anyways. Goes knight to f1, and it was GG. Rook takes f1, followed by rook d1 mate after king takes. So yeah, that was the game. I definitely enjoyed most of it, although I did feel like a little annoyed that I was allowing this counterplay with BC. Mainly annoyed at myself that I didn't find a way to make it simpler, but I do feel like I actually was in control kind of the whole time, and I haven't checked with Comp yet, but I don't think I let white off the hook truly at any point in the game. So yeah, felt like a decent win. Good to be on 2 out of 3. Tomorrow we're back to 1 round per day, so I will definitely be getting some rest and hoping to prepare well. Alrighty folks, thanks for watching, and see you next time.